Not a bad story to start this video off. For those who missed it, we had a dormant Bitcoin wallet reactivate in the last week. This person bought 10,000 Bitcoin 14 years ago for a combined sum of $15,400. He finally sold the other day for a total 1.1 billion. 15k to 1.1 billion in 14 years. That's a 71,000x. What's even crazier is he moved this sum in only one clip. He didn't even send a little as a test. Absolute madman. And you still got people in the replies saying how he sold early and he should have held longer, unironically. I'm thinking, why did he even wait this long? The guy would have seen his bag hit 10, 50, 100, 200 million and just stayed still. Of course, this could just be him finally recovering a lost seed phrase or something, but still, crazy story regardless. I'm happy for them. What's up, people? I hope you're all doing immensely well. It's been a few weeks, so I thought I'd drop another market update video. These have been holding up really well. We have been pretty accurate in our ongoing analysis. It's nice to zoom out and remain calm and objective in an otherwise chaotic and reactionary space. We'll cover the usual bases, take a look at Bitcoin with some technical and fundamental analysis. We'll look at some developments in the macroeconomic world, study Ethereum to see where it could be going, and then some final closing thoughts on alts and the state of the market. Remember, as always, whilst I am a financial advisor in real life, none of this is financial advice. Beginning with Bitcoin, it's been an interesting couple weeks. I had been mentioning previously that staying above 100k in and amongst all the geopolitical drama would be impressive, but I personally did expect us to drop into the low to mid 90s range. That somehow didn't happen, and when the US seemed to be getting directly involved in the Iran-Israel war, with the Strait of Hormuz potentially closing, Bitcoin wicked down to 98k at its lowest before quickly recovering and getting up above 100k again. This for me is another ridiculous showing of strength, something which for someone who has been in crypto for 6 years is still kind of surprising. We're so used to seeing this asset fluctuate ridiculously at even the slightest to moderate pieces of news, crashing 50% or more, so to have a very minor pullback on the chance of the US breaking into war, World War III, and rising tensions before recovering like nothing even happened is nothing short of exceptional. And still not too many people in the real world seem to be taking note. Actually, not even just the real world, crypto itself is a ghost town right now from people in this space too. Everyone seems fed up, morale is down, but I personally don't mind it because that's where serious money is to be made, to catch those out who are least expecting it. So what's the future looking like? Well, there is a bull flag pattern which seems to be emerging here, which is of course bullish. We have had solid consolidation above 100k for a while now, the continuous sideways action providing more and more gasoline for the inevitable explosion upwards. Combined with our macroeconomic factors, which we'll discuss in a second, Bitcoin, dare I say, is looking ready for another leg up. Where that leg takes us is hard to judge, and I don't really like getting involved in the guessing games. 120, 125, 140, 150k, and there's always some optimist coming in with a 500k prediction or something, I don't know. But let's take it one step at a time and wait for the breakout confirmation. If we do get a black swan event of some kind, which to be honest this whole year has basically been a black swan, then we could drop into the low to mid 90s or even as far as the high 70s, low 80s. I wouldn't call for the cycle to be over with this move in isolation, as there would be more variables to consider. One of them being the 50-week moving average, which we have respected so well multiple times this cycle. You can see what happens if we lose this trend from back in 2022, but you know, so far so good. We've had a couple close scares, especially back in March, April early this year where we wicked below, but for now, nothing to be concerned about. The inflows for the Bitcoin ETFs have continued to look healthy, just one negative day in the last 18. Not always directly correlated to price, but it's a good indicator for investor and institutional sentiment. And we'd of course much rather see this in the green and increasing as opposed to in the red. And when looking at the past data, the next couple months do look promising. I know past performance isn't indicative of future results, we all know that, but it's worth taking a look at anyway. Both the average and the median for July are pretty good, up 7 and 8%. And whilst at first glance, August does look pretty bad, looking at the performance in post-halving years, you know, we've got 30%, 65%, 14%. It's not guaranteed, but it shows that there is promise. Obviously, we are in a post-halving year right now, and it kind of implies it doesn't have to be a dry summer like 2024 was. Quick break to ask, why are you not part of the best free community in crypto? Join over 1,000 people determined to make money and help each other out. Sign up to the email newsletter too. It's all free. You've got no excuse. Link down below. Macroeconomically, we are seemingly entering better times than what we've had so far this year. In terms of conflicts, Iran and Israel have of course reached a ceasefire of some sorts. Aside from the obvious ethical positives here, it really brings more stability and confidence to investors. The closing of the Hormuz Strait would have really impacted oil, global trade, inflation, and so on, so it was great to avoid this. We've already mentioned the strength Bitcoin showed throughout this conflict. However, given the hostility between these two nations, they could start fighting again at any time, unfortunately, which could impact the markets. On top of this, Trump is also looking for further peace between Palestine and Israel, but also Russia and Ukraine. I feel these two conflicts will be more complex to solve, but at least it's a discussion on the table. If they both continue, I can't see it impacting the markets much. Perhaps it's already been priced in for a while, but it's more so the fact we will be reaching more global peace if they can find solutions, which will benefit economies and will be perfect for sentiment. Moving on to the Fed and the economy, we're in a bit of a weird state. We've had news come out in the last couple of weeks that the Fed would be more open to rate cuts in July and a potential strategy pivot. We've had Trump continuously gunning Jerome Powell, saying that there's a moron at the head of the Fed and so on, and he has been demanding 1% interest rates, which is just ludicrous. We've had uncertainty within the Fed itself, with Jerome Powell potentially on the way out, with other candidates looking to step up. All in all, what does this mean? I personally believe we should have had rate cuts at some point this year. The fact that we haven't had any at all in 2025 is kind of shocking. We were close with the tariff drama, the markets looked to collapse and the pressure was mounting, but they recovered just in time. We have a markets-oriented president applying serious pressure too. So to be honest, I don't know what they're playing at. I get Jerome Powell wants to play it safe and he has done an exceptional job in the last few years to avoid a recession. But I don't know, I just feel like investors and the economy and the markets just need a little bit of stimulation. Inflation, according to Trueflation, has been decreasing in 2025. Currently, it's 1.89%, which is below the reported rate of 2.4% and below the Fed's target of 2%. So again, in terms of inflation, we're looking good. The unemployment data as of late has been steady, but could be creeping back up. I kind of hope it does creep up in the next data release, as pressure needs to be applied for this data-oriented Fed. Bad news can be good news. And the Fed balance sheet is showing that we are slowing down or even coming to an end for QT, visualized here by the steep curve beginning to level off. A reversal here would signify the beginning of QE, which would be very nice for the markets. Look at the incline from 2020 onwards and remember what this period did for our portfolios. The markets are pricing in a few rate cuts this year, perhaps 2 or 3, but remember we had 5 priced in only a few months ago, which were meant to start in June, so that was bullshit. Honestly, I think July will stay the same. I think it could be similar to last year. Remember, we got the first cut in September 2024, which if you've been in this community for a while, you'll know we did see it coming, and it gave us a strong finish to Q4. Of course, the rate of the cut also matters. If we get 25 bips, 50 bips, or if Trump gets his way and we get cut by a full percentage, I don't know. That's probably unlikely, but stimulation is needed. It's the first cut that's important. It signifies to investors we're ready to go risk on again. In the midst of all this, the Senate passed Trump's big beautiful bill. I ain't American, so I was a bit slow to this news, but it's pro-growth and pro-business from what I've read. A mixture of tax cuts, spending cuts in certain areas, raising debt ceilings. So in the short to medium term, I do expect this to be bullish. It will raise sentiment and increase consumer and investor spending. But long term, I can see this being detrimental. Debt concerns, inflation issues are obvious, but it could pose all sorts of economic risks. The gamble from Trump's team is the tariff revenues and expected growth should offset these negatives, but we just gotta wait and see. I guess more importantly, it should be good for the short term and for crypto this year. Another indicator we've been watching closely is global liquidity. This has been creeping up all year and it seems to be continuing its momentum on its highest and longest uptrend. These are the metrics factored into this indicator that I use, and once again, as done previously, When we offset it by 75 days to account for the lag, we can see how closely it follows Bitcoin or vice versa. Over the last few months, I've seen a lot of people complaining, saying too many people know about this indicator, therefore it's invalidated as people will be trading it and so on. I disagree. I think no indicator should be used purely in isolation. This, combined with others, paints an image. There's an increasing amount of money and liquidity in global economies. Very simply put, more money in economies means more money can be potentially invested into risk assets like crypto and stocks, meaning price can and should, in theory, go up. Very simple, guys. The dollar has been continuing its downtrend. In ordinary circumstances, we would have seen this translating into exploding risk assets as investors pivot from risk off to risk on. But we haven't been in ordinary circumstances all year. It does bode well for when we return to some geopolitical stability and we get some more bullish economic conditions. I'm pretty happy with the level we're at right now, but Trump being Trump definitely wants the dollar to become even more devalued. This is the lowest it's been in about 3 years, and I'm very curious to see just how low we will end up going. It's also worth mentioning that the S&P 500 did hit all-time highs in the last 2 weeks. Fantastic recovery from April, and also great news for risk assets overall. To do this in these uncertain conditions, similar to Bitcoin holding above 100k, is honestly exceptional, and I can't help but feel this upwards momentum will continue for the foreseeable future, provided we don't get any more shocks. The indicator for the altcoin market, and my favorite shitcoin next, Ethereum. I just want to say, I've had this zone mapped out since the start of May, and look at how well we've respected it. Nothing has changed in my thesis. The resistance to break out above this range was always going to be tough, hence the struggles we've seen. But more importantly, the new floor has proven to be very strong. Aside from this temporary blip, we have remained in the region of around $2,500, which is very impressive given how risky altcoins are deemed by the market in these uncertain times and throughout the cycle. I still think if we can break out and above this area, it will be clear skies above 3k and we can put in another extended rally. When that happens, I'm not too sure. I don't know if we're waiting for a piece of news or a catalyst from the economy or whatever, but I am still betting on ETH bursting past all-time highs at some point, hopefully this year. It also seems increasingly likely that we have seen the bottom for ETH BTC, another unofficial alt season indicator, but there is still a long way to go. We have seen what sort of candles this can produce, but we need a lot more of them to inject life back into our altcoins. Just like Bitcoin, the inflows for Ethereum have also looked decent, but I do expect this to ramp up and increase in the coming months. I've spoken about increasing stablecoin adoption a few times on this channel, and the news continues to build. The Genius Act is something to definitely keep an eye on. If this is passed and put into law, it basically allows the regulation of stablecoins and could bring stablecoins to mainstream adoption. The ranges vary, but around 50% or possibly even higher of stablecoin protocols exist on Ethereum. This is due to the infrastructure already in place, perhaps first mover advantage, and just being the DeFi chain. Sol, Tron, and others may be quicker or more scalable, but the stability in Ethereum is very highly valued. So should this bill pass and the institutes look to invest in, utilize, trade, exchange stablecoins, which chain do you think is going to get the most attention, resulting in a surge in activity and rising prices? If you combine that with the attention seemingly coming back towards tokenization, the future looks quite bright for Ethereum. But of course, a lot of us in this community hold the true altcoins. Lower market caps, higher risks for higher rewards. What about them? It's hard to gauge. A lot have looked dead and buried, barely moved off of their April lows, and aren't even close to their all-time highs, most likely not even reaching. In the upcoming leg up, a lot of these coins will look weak, giving poor returns comparatively to other projects. I've said all along this time is different. It won't be like alt seasons of the past, but instead, only the strongest projects will have their individual alt seasons. You just have to make sure you're holding the right ones. I've mentioned my favorites throughout this channel and I still believe in them. If you are underexposed, you still have time, and it may be a good idea to wait for a clear reversal in sentiment and returns if you're a bit more on the pessimistic side. There's no rush or reason to be throwing your hard-earned money into the market in these conditions. This whole year has basically been a defensive, capital protection oriented approach. Developments in ETFs for altcoins are constant, with approval for Sol, Ripple and Litecoin at 95%. I'm sure others like Cardano, DOT, AVAX, etc. won't be far behind. The knock-on effect of these approvals is more eyes on altcoins, increasing investor sentiment shift towards riskier bets, and the entire altcoin market should benefit. We have been very up and down this year. I still think we'll get that window where it becomes 10 times easier to make money. That window could last a few weeks, a month and a half, I don't know, but we'll definitely get it. See November to December 2024. In just 4 weeks, the entire others market more than doubled. And that's the beauty of this space. You can be down and out, bags looking depressing, but you work hard, you lock in, you follow the right people, you make some brave decisions, and you can recoup your losses, lock in some profits and more in a very short space of time. There's still plenty of life left in this cycle yet, and the hardest part is not giving up. If you are still here, watching my videos, keeping an eye on our Discord, then I both appreciate and respect you, because a lot of people have given up. I firmly believe those who don't will be rewarded. Aside from that, I hope you all enjoyed watching. Please subscribe if you did. Thank you so much for your ongoing support, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care.